Good morning. You're listening to WPVM LP in Asheville, North Carolina, 103.7 on the dial. This is the BLAINESWORLD show, and we're heard each Wednesday here on WPVM at 9 a.m. And you can also watch us on WPVM's Facebook page. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week we focus on the Asheville theater scene, as well as positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce my first of two guests tonight, or this morning, and he is Simka Weinstein. And feel free to wave to all your friends and fans in Facebook world. So Simka, you can wave. Everybody can say.
I can wave. There you go.
Great. And Simka is the Director of Marketing at Mother Earth Foods. He has been involved in the organic foods industry his entire career with a passion about the importance and value of organic foods and sharing this with others. The question I ask Simka, first of all, when I meet somebody, is you grew up as a kid where?
I'm sorry,
where did you grow up as a kid?
I grew up in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., Silver Spring, Maryland. So
Okay.
people are kind of from, I've always said Washington, D.C., but more and more people know Silver Spring, Bethesda, that area. And I grew up there till I was 18, and then I left to go to college.
Well, and when you were growing up outside of Washington, did you always know you wanted to be in the organic food industry?
Not at all.
What brought that on?
Well, I mean, I grew up, it was a pretty urban, it wasn't really quite suburbia. It was a fairly urban area. And, I never had a garden or anything like that growing up. I kind of got into the whole thing after, I left the DC area to go to college, as I mentioned. I went to school, Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina. This is 1972. And when I got out, I had no clue that I would ever get involved in the organic foods industry. But I thought I was going to go to law school, but I wanted to take couple 3 years off, when you've been in school, the real world of work seems attractive, and often it's the other way around too. You work for a while and you miss school. But so myself and three friends, we just wanted to open a little business. We were 22 years old. One of the friends, his father owned this produce company in Winston-Salem. So we thought, we'll just open a little produce market. That'll be great. We at least know how we can get going. Go to his father for food, and that's what we did. And kind of in spite of us, 22, and we were pretty intelligent and we enjoyed running a business, but we were also 22, and in spite of us, the business did pretty well.
Now,
but also, I'm sorry.
So the business, was this in the organic food?
It didn't start out that way at all. This was 1976. It was, there wasn't a lot going on in the organic world, but we kind of helped change that. And as time went on in this market, after a few months, was doing a lot of reading. I encountered a couple books, Rachel Carlson,
Sure.
her Silent Spring, Frances Moore LePay, Diet for a Small Planet. These books kind of introduced me to kind of a different way of eating, a different way of looking at our food delivery system. And at that point I became very interested in organic foods. And we would take our truck 3 times a week to pick up food in Winston-Salem, just an hour and some change away. But we began to change that, and we would take our truck once a month down to Florida, South Florida, about 14 hours. And we would go to these organic farms, we'd buy produce, let all our customers know. And, once a month for about that first week, we had organic food and everybody knew, and we would come, and we kind of not only developed this clientele, but really kind of introduced the community to organic fresh foods. And it was just, we had no sense of whether this was smart business or anything. Right. But it was something certainly that I became very interested and passionate in. And it just seemed like we wanted to see how it would do in a pretty progressive, well-educated community like Chapel Hill. And it did really well. And it served me well in that it kept me from going to law school. And I'm very grateful for that.
But it's funny because you were actually ahead of the curve, late 70s, early 80s, there weren't, a lot of people doing organic stuff then.
There were very few people, especially in North Carolina. There was a buzz about it, certainly in California, Southern California, the San Francisco area. But I have to say, we definitely helped pioneer it in the Southeast and certainly in North Carolina. But it's the kind of thing, I can look back and say that, but that's not, we didn't think, hey, we're pioneering this. We were just young, getting interested, engaged, and excited about something, and just following through with it.
How'd that go over at home? That all of a sudden you graduate college and you're driving a truck, with down to Florida. Was that well received at home?
It was fine. I have to say I had pretty, having grown up in DC, DC, good liberal Jewish family, and they pretty much, it was a different time. They were fine with whatever I was doing. And, they weren't disappointed that their son wasn't going to go to law school. And I think maybe they were surprised that I even made it as far as I did, thinking even after college that, hey, I'm still going to go. I think they were pretty open to the fact that, we know Simka pretty well. He's likely to get sidetracked. And that's exactly what happened.
So at that point in time, then you gave up your dream to become a lawyer, or somebody's dream to become a lawyer?
That's well said. I'm not sure if it was my dream or my passion. But again, I probably would have gone into something like environmental law, and I think, hey, there's a lot of wisdom in having a law degree, but I'm never, I'm very happy for the path I chose, and really sort of stayed with it. I'm very grateful. I could say I'm very grateful I didn't go to law school, or I could say I'm very grateful that I pursued, the organic foods and the alternative lifestyle as far as our food delivery system goes.
So take it from there. So you and your two buddies are making the run down to Florida, doing some organic food business in North Carolina area. How did it go from there to where you are now?
So from there, I ended up, the short story is I hooked up with somebody who was a year older than me, and he had spent several years in Southern California, where this was booming a lot more. The organic scene was, California, it's fair to say that in many things, California was certainly ahead of North Carolina. And he came back to town because he wanted to open a natural food store. And we hooked up. He came by and reached out to me and said, hey, I see what you're doing here. Would love to work with you. The short of it was I did that. I helped him open 3 stores. It was one of the early companies back in the 92 or 90, something like that got bought by Whole Foods. And so then for a while, I was working with Whole Foods, their director of produce operations for that little Southeast region. And then I moved on. I wanted something different, wanted to live in a different town, enjoyed hiking and backpacking, and our family, we moved down here, and that kind of facilitated me doing more of my own thing. And, one of the things that I saw was how, even though the organic industry was growing, how it was articulated, how it was communicated, the story of organic foods seemed to fall short, I thought. And I think it fell prey to what often happens with people, is that you're passionate about something, you're immersed in it, and you somehow just assume that everybody understands your thought processes, what's going on. And it's kind of like the genius professor who is a horrible teacher because he can't simplify it and present it in a story fashion. And I thought, I just saw a window there, and I said, I want to make sure that we have some kind of elevator speech, if you will, for organic foods, local foods, alternative agriculture, sustainable agriculture. And so I just kind of got involved with that, just sort of storytelling, if you will, communicating what what organic is.
Well, wait, can I put you on the spot here now and ask you a question?
Please.
You kind of led me into it, but okay, now the elevator pitch, or what is the short story you tell people?
Well, that's a good thing. Metaphorically, I haven't been on the elevator in a while, So, but I would say, the short of it is, I think you always lead with your vision. What is the outcome? Um, I'm not seeing you. I guess that's okay.
I can see you. You're fine.
Okay, there you go. I think you always start with the outcome, how you would like for what you do to land in the best possible scenario on the planet. So for me, that's, I would say, look, we're looking to change the way people eat, create a sustainable future. Find a way that people can, in the same way that people look to live their lives with kindness and compassion and empathy. That's all we're doing with our food. How can we eat using those attributes? But it's more than just doing that with each other. It's doing that with the planet. How can, if you show kindness, compassion, empathy towards the planet, you're not going to slap down a whole bunch of, pesticides and fertilizers and chemicals onto the ground. If, it's just, I think that's, so many things are about if we live kindly, compassionately, with empathy, with love. And that's really organic food. How we eat is just a subset of that, really, right?
By the way, that was great because, I had other people try to explain it and they didn't really, but, you just did it in a minute there. So thank you. That was beautiful.
Thank you
Talk
for
about,
asking.
talk about though, from then you were working with your buddies and then you got out of that and take that to now Mother Earth Foods. What is Mother Earth Foods, first of all?
Mother Earth Foods is, so I think the easiest way to understand Mother Earth Food is, it's a home delivery service of local and organic foods. And I think the easiest way to think of it is, we all can imagine a farmer's market. Farmer's market where you've got a whole group, sometimes hundreds of local farmers, growers, food artisans. And what Mother Earth Food does, instead of you having to jump out of bed Saturday morning, dash to the farmer's market, and I don't want to paint that as a bad event. That can often be a lot of fun. Mother Earth Food brings that farmer's market right to your doorstep. In other words, currently we work with over 300 local farmers, and we like to call them food artisans, people who produce, whether it's peanut butter, whether it's, a beverage, whatever it is, we like to think of them as food artisans. And we work with over 300 of them. We now have 1,000 items. So basically, we put wheels to a farmer's market. People can order now and say, I want, they go to the website, they can you shop right from there, and you select what you want, and then we deliver it. And suddenly your Saturday morning is freed up.
Can you imagine, or to have food delivery? It's like, well, now some of the bigger stores finally do it because COVID. But until that, you had nobody delivering food. It's kind of exciting. Talk about, you mentioned the food. I like that term, food artisans. Have you done any food production yourself, or made anything, or done any organic farming?
I have not. I can tell you this, throughout my career, I've been to many, many, many organic farms. I've been to many in California, some of the largest growers now in the organic industry. I remember in the late 70s, early 80s, visit their farm. They used to, like everybody else, they delivered their wares to the co-op in Santa Cruz, California. And suddenly things just got larger. It just sort of happened. It caught a lot of people. I don't know if by surprise is the right word, but we a lot of us, somebody of my age who was in the organic industry when I was there in the early 70s, we grew up with the organic industry. And, we did help shape it. We were a vital part of the conversation, if you will. We helped pioneer it. And we can only use that language now looking back, if you know what I mean. At the time, we had no idea what we were doing. It's just like, hey, this is great. This is cool. We love it. It looks like it's taking off a bit. And, you never get quite the glimpse of the impact you're making until you look behind in the rearview mirror. And looking back in the rearview mirror, that industry has done well.
Mother Earth Foods has been around for how long?
So Mother Earth Foods is celebrating 10 years this year. And it was founded by Andrea and Graham Duvall. They live here in Asheville. Lovely, lovely people. But I've been with Mother Earth Food now for about 3 months, and quite comfortably I can really say that line, lovely people, really about everyone who works there. It's just it's wonderful. And they started it and 10 years ago, and it's evolved, and they've had a lot of good people who work there and who've helped them crystallize and gel their vision. But basically their vision is how can we get local food, ideally organic, regenerative, sustainably grown and produced foods into the homes of people? How can we help? How can we change the way people eat? And ultimately, their aim is to create a sustainable future. The one thing I learned, whether it's about local foods, organic foods, you have people like Andrea and Graham. They're not really doing this for themselves. It's not a selfish or self-oriented venture. They're thinking about the next generation and the generation after that. What they're doing is about sustainability and, creating something that hopefully will endure even past their lives and perhaps even make the greatest impact down the road in the future. And that's a beautiful thing. It's like what we're doing, we realize, and I say we, that's them speak, that's them, Andrea and Graham, that they may not see the full benefit of it until much further down the road. But it's there's a company called, I don't know if you've heard of a company called Seventh Generation.
I don't think so. Yeah.
And they have a lot of products, dishwashing products, that kind of stuff. And that name Seventh Generation comes from it's kind of it's how the Native Americans used to view things. For them, whatever they did, they would look not just to how it impacted this generation, the next one, or even the one after that. It was how will it impact things 7 generations down the line. And I think that's what Mother Earth Food is part of that process now. They're impacting future generations, and you don't always get a chance to know how amazing and how great your work is even in your own lifetime.
Now, what's cool about what you're doing is, so I guess are you the first director of marketing for the company?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
But it's great.
I think that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but it's great. But you're telling the story though, and you're doing it really well. That's your job, I guess, to get the word out about what the company is all about.
Yes, and I certainly I have help. I work with other people there, but in our little 40 acres of Mother Earth Food in marketing, yeah, our job is to tell the story, to get people excited and interested in coming on board and again eating differently, changing the way people eat, but and having people say, I with every bite I want to create a sustainable future. I'm ready to eating is very pleasurable. It's a wonderfully addictive, hedonistic event. And I'm all for that. And if we can do that with a little mindfulness and just say, I'm going to pay attention to where my food comes from, how it was created, doesn't take anything away from the enjoyment or the pleasure, and it gives a little back.
And talk about, Simcha, what people then who want to get involved in this do. So they can, I guess, first of all, check the website is the first thing people should do.
Going to the website, yes, the website is a huge tool, and that would be motherearthfood.com.
Okay, so if they go to motherearthfood.com, we'll have to mention that again. And what will happen when they go to the website for the first time?
So basically what happens, you go to the website, you get to find out a little bit about who we are, what we do. And again, the website, which we're in the process of redoing, and probably a month from now, it's going to look considerably different. But what'll happen is you go to the website and you get to find out a little bit about us, the concept of, we're a farmer's market delivered to your door. And at any point on the website, there's plenty of opportunities to say, this sounds good. I want to sign up and just begin shopping. And, there's plenty of buttons that make that really clear, like shop now. That gives a pretty clear directive.
But boy, is that easy for people to do, so they can just go there and never have to go out of their house. And talk about the beauty of it, I think, Simcha, too, is what you're not only doing for the community, but you're also doing for farmers as well. And talk a little bit about that in terms of farmers getting their stuff out to folks.
Absolutely. I mean, we're only as good as our farmers and our food artisan producers. We really are. And to us, they're family. Many of them we've been working with for 10 years. We truly honor the work that they do. If we're going to have a local food system, they're the key. We're kind of the go-between between the people who live in the community and the local growers. If they were spending all their time either, attending farmers markets to sell their food or having to deliver their food to us, they wouldn't be able to do what we most need them to do, and that's to grow and raise beautiful, healthy food. So we're kind of the distribution focus for all of that. But they are so important. As a matter of fact, we recently just got a grant from the USDA, and the grant, so much of the grant is to help market Mother Earth foods, but really that's indistinguishable from helping to market the local growers and the local food producers in Asheville. Because really, the more business we do, the more of our money and the more local money goes to the people that are producing the food. It's really kind of that simple. If we do well, the farmers do well. And so we look to promote them. If you go on the website, we have imagery of them and tell their story. They are our family. Without them, we basically love our customers. We certainly love the farmers and even the people who work at Mother Earth Food. The beautiful thing about everyone who works there, and again, I'm just getting to know everyone there for 3 months, but what I see is a group of people who break bread together, who laugh together, certainly work together. But I would say probably the most important thing is it's a group of people who really care together. They care about the viability of our habitat. That they see that how we eat really impacts that. Our food delivery system impacts climate change. It impacts so much. And so everybody kind of goes to work in the morning every day, kind of a little bit on a mission. I mean, we have fun, but it's a beautiful focus. It's really wonderful to see.
Now, the farmers are located where? Primarily Asheville or all Western North Carolina?
So that's a very good question. The farms are all over North Carolina. They can actually be outside of North Carolina. So it kind of brings up a much larger point, but basically local. One of the issues is that there aren't really parameters. There's no rules. Like in the organic industry, there's basically rules, right? There's the organic rules and regulations. In local right now, there's not. And so for some people, they'll say 300 miles from the point of origin is 300 miles from Asheville is local. Some I've seen as high as 500. If you want to get technical, the 2008 Farm Bill, decreed it as 400 miles from the point of origin. So, we work with growers that are really within, we tend to do it within a 300-mile radius of Asheville.
Now, the farmers, so they do their stuff and then they bring it to a warehouse, or how does it get from the farm to you folks and then to me as a customer?
Yes, so it's a combination. Some of them will harvest and then they deliver to our focal point, our warehouse, and for some we pick up. It depends on the size, it depends on the situation, but we do a little combination of both of those. They deliver and we pick up, but we consolidate everything. Then we pick the orders for the people, and then we deliver. We have refrigerated vans, and we deliver to our customers.
And talk a little bit about, again, you mentioned this USDA grant. When did you get it, and what exactly will it be doing for the operation?
So the grant we got this summer, and I think I don't want to misspeak. I think it officially began implemented this fall. And basically it's for us, for Mother Earth food, it's the USDA. And so they're very, very much, they want to see their growers do well. And they realize that one way to have the growers expand their business is to have Mother Earth food do well. And whenever we market, we market Mother Earth food, but we always do that by promoting our food artisan and our grower partners. That's everything for us. We constantly remind people, this is where your food comes from. This is the beauty of buying local food. These are members of your community. This isn't some guy in California who, picked the food 13 days ago and, it's been on a truck since then, and there's been 5 or 6 other middle people in between. This is a community member. And oh, by the way, the money that you spend on the food, they get the money. It's back in their pocket. And then they'll turn around and buy what they need from local folks, local business people and craftspeople here in Asheville. And that's the real beauty of local. It's not just the food. It creates an entire sustainable, socioeconomic little ecosystem.
How large is Mother Earth Food in terms of people you have on board there, approximately?
I think that there's, and it's not going to be 100% accurate, but I think I'm in the ballpark of about 30 to 35 people who work there.
Okay, and where are you located?
It's on, this is so embarrassing. It's off of Leicester. It's in West Asheville.
Okay.
And I think it's Hawksbill Road.
What's in West Asheville?
They'll giggle like crazy that I don't even know the address. But it's in West Asheville.
It's like they once asked Einstein what was his phone number, and he didn't know it because he never called himself. So
That's right. That's right.
But the question I'm asking, so do people actually, though, the beauty of it, if they're listening to the show, they never have to go to your facility, though. Is that correct?
People can pick up if some people want to pick up.
Okay.
It's like, hey, I work 3 doors down at something. And on Saturdays, we have kind of our own version of a farmer's market. Saturdays, we open the place up, we put the food out, and a lot of people will come. It's our version of an open air farmer's market, and people come for that. So, we do a combination, and we try. Look, people, especially in these times, love having stuff delivered to their door.
Sure.
But if they want to come by, we're not going to get in the way of that.
And Simon, one last time, if folks want to find out more information about Mother Earth Foods, best bet is to go to the website, and if you repeat it again?
It's motherearthfood.com. And similarly, we're on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Okay, I'd like to thank you for being my guest this first half hour on Blaine's World Show. And it's a pleasure meeting you. Simon, thanks very much.
You as well, Blaine. Thank you so much.
Okay, as Simon fades out, I'm going to try to bring in our other guest. So we'll see if we can get him to disappear. And Trish, there she is. Hey, Trish. And as you get set up, let me just make a brief announcement. I'd like to mention that you're listening to WPVM, and our mission is to foster our community through programming that cultivates dialogue to inform and entertain. The station provides the medium for artists, businesses, community leaders, and nonprofits to share their voice on live radio, also on Facebook Live. Listeners are invited to help support WPVM's efforts by making a tax-deductible contribution. They can do so by going to the website, wpvmfm.org, and looking at the donate option on the upper right-hand side. It's next my pleasure to introduce Trisha Gallagher. And Trisha is an author, entrepreneur, kindness guru, you call it. Trisha's just about done it. And welcome aboard, Trisha. You can wave to all your fans in Facebook world. So if you're watching, that's my friend Trisha Gallagher. And it's a real treat, Trisha. We were talking off the air that I've known you since, was it 1943, was it? Or 44, something like that. Wait, I don't have your sound, Trisha. Let's just get the sound. Let me see if I can unmute you. Sorry about that. Yes, unmute. Trisha. Yeah, can you hear me now, Trisha?
Yeah. Can
Great,
you hear me?
perfect. Yeah. And no, I've known Trisha certainly since the late 1980s, 1990s. And just one of my favorite people, Trisha, for all you do for the community. And she's she's founder of 3 national kindness projects. And each one of them, just every time I heard about them, just kind of blew me away. And the thing, Trisha, that's amazing is that you're always seeming to come up with something different. Talk a little bit. You were telling us off the air, and I had heard the story, how you got into this whole thing of being somebody who goes out in the community and writes books. And how many books have you written, by the way?
It's about 30. None a bestseller, but I've written them.
Okay. But talk about how you got into that. In other words, when you were a little kid, you grew up where?
I grew up in King of Prussia. I was one of 5 children. I went to Villanova to become a teacher, but I only taught for a few years. And then I got a job with AT&T when affirmative action was coming out and women were accepted into management positions. So I had a good job. But then after I started having children, after my second child, I thought, what can I do from home? And I had seen a big SCORE bulletin board saying that they would help you find a new career or whatever. And I contacted them and just let the counselor know that I had just graduated from St. Joe's with an MBA in finance, and I was looking to do something from home. And he said, why don't you start a daycare business? And I felt like saying, no, wait, I want an international trip. I want to wear that white bow blouse and that navy suit. But I didn't do a full-time daycare. I had the idea to start a Mother's Day Out program. And what that was just for neighborhood moms. And they would sign up 7 moms on Tuesday, 7 moms on Thursday, from 9:30 to 1:30. They bring little Joey and Tommy. And I would have little activities. We'd do Play-Doh, then we read a story, then we'd go in the backyard. And that was the beginning of wanting to write. I was never a writer, never liked writing. But there was a show called Our Magazine with Gary Collins. Do you remember that show way back?
I know the name. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. And something just said, write him a letter. And I said, has my mind turned to mush since I left my job at AT&T or something like that? I'd like to be a guest on your show to tell other mothers how they can supplement their income by starting a Mother's Day Out program. And I think I charged $7.50 a day times 7 kids, so $50. And he thought it was a good idea, and he flew me out to be on my first television show to tell mothers how to start a Mother's Day Out program. And that little booklet that I put together for that show led to a book that came out with Doubleday called Start Your Own At-Home Childcare Business. And that kind of whet my appetite for being an entrepreneur and writing about whatever my family was going through.
And Trisha, we'll talk about that book in just a second, but I hope if anybody's listening to this, they get the idea that, if you have an idea, just kind of run with it. And that's what always so impressed me with what you do, is you have these incredible ideas and then you kind of sell them yourself. In other words, talk about, I think you were the one who told me the story, the first book you wrote, or one of the first ones, where you then went around the country telling the story about the book.
Yeah, well, let me go back to my
Sure.
philosophy of run with it, because that's exactly what I say. When I get an idea, I run with it. I say that. And I follow nothing ventured, nothing gained, and there's profit in persistence. The Doubleday book was supposed to come out. They said on their catalog, Patricia Gallagher, National Author Tour, National this, National that. And I called the editor and I said, I have 3 little girls under 4, like I need to know about this National Author Tour. She said, oh, you're not going. And I said, I'm not going. But on page 67, she said, yeah, but our sales reps went out to all the stores and we didn't get enough advance orders. So we're going to trash it, smash it, whatever it was. Oh, no. And then I said, oh, she said, we're not going to, who do you think you are, Jackie Onassis or something like that? And it gave me the idea, oh my God, I already thought I was going on this tour. I've got to do it. So I asked them if they would give me a little time. And I contacted libraries around the country, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, Des Moines. Then for each place I was doing the free library, I contacted their AM show, whether it was People Were Talking or AM Cleveland. And I tried to book a radio show in those cities, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, Des Moines, Nashville, Knoxville, up through New England and down to Virginia Beach. And then I went back to Doubleday. I had a map on the wall, it was little push pins. And I went back to Doubleday and I said, I have this going on. And they said, okay, I think they said, we'll give you $5,000 towards the trip, but we're not publishing the book. But then Publishers Weekly, you've heard of Publishers
Sure.
Weekly, that's the publication that goes out to every bookstore and every bookseller and every library. They wrote an article and they had to pick, I went to Reedman's and bought a van. And I put, start your own at-home childcare business, ask us how. And nobody could miss that beautiful van with all these little kid type things. And Doubleday gave me the money and they weren't going to publish it, but Publishers Weekly wrote a headline story with 3 pictures of me and the kids standing outside the van with them little girls wearing shirts. Ask me about my mommy's book. Have you read my mommy's book? My mommy's book is available here, these little t-shirts. And the headline said, savvy marketer learns about publishing, ... and publisher learns about marketing. And after that appeared in Publishers Weekly, just by accident and desperation, Doubleday decided to publish the book. And it went on to do very well for the books, for the bookseller. And by going on all those promotional tours, other opportunities came up. And one was to be a product spokesperson for Resolve, for Lysol, for Holiday Inn. But if I hadn't gotten that kind of publicity, that person that was hiring spokespeople would not have known about me. But it wasn't like I planned any of that. But it ended up being in the Better Homes and Gardens book club. It ended up being in all the bookstores. It was picked up by all the libraries and reviewed in Library Journal and Book List and all that kind of stuff. And then that opened my world to want to do that again. So when a new book would come out, the next one was Raising Happy Kids on the Budget. I did the same darn thing. I did Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, Des Moines, blah, blah, blah. Went back to Holiday Inn, and we became the Holiday Inn traveling family that summer. And all of our Holiday Inn, Crown Plaza, Sunsbury Resorts, all the Holiday Inns, we could go and stay free. And I had to do promotion for them. Like if I was doing a television show and I was talking about the book, and I'd say, you know what, the best deal in town is our kids. We stay at the Holiday Inn every time because kids stay free, kids eat free. And then I had to go to the Holiday Inn Innkeepers Convention in Arizona and just tell them about my findings. So that's how things happen for me, not because of a business plan.
Well, I always have loved your story. I've told this repeatedly because you exemplified something I would tell my SCORE clients and my students, Trisha. And I'd say, and I believe in this, and you certainly demonstrated, but it was a line from Ken Blanchard, the author, one-minute manager, wrote a whole bunch of other stuff. And he says, if you don't toot your own horn, somebody else will use it as a spittoon, Yeah. And that's you, It just, whatever you do, you tell your story. But such a great story, and it seems like you really love telling your story too, though, do you? Sharing it?
I love remembering that time when I was in my late 30s or so and dragging the kids around wherever I went, and my mother would come with me. Yeah, it makes me feel happy thinking of those happy times.
Well, I remember that I think years ago I had you speak to my students at the college, and we got to know each other through then. But then what kind of blew me away, Trisha, is that it seemed like every couple of years you were doing something else. So I heard this story about this book. Then all of a sudden, I'll talk about a couple that I know pretty well. The one project I got to know you through was you had this Team of Angels project, and that was just, I heard about it and said, what a fantastic idea. If you could kind of give the Reader's Digest summary of what that project was all about.
I was living in Richboro, Pennsylvania. I had 4 kids, married, but our family was going through some difficult times, and I was very overwhelmed. And I think I was down in the basement, and I had never had an angel experience. I never gave a hoot about angels, but I just wrote a little poem in my mind, An Angel for the Overwhelmed. It was a prayer for me. And I don't know how I wrote it, but I said, I need a team of angels, Lord. I don't think one will do. Please send me all the help from high for what I'm going through. Guardians to watch over me and help my soul to cope. I'll do the best I can to pray and cherish gifts of faith and hope. And that's all it was. But I had friends that were going through tough times, so I went to Office Backs in Feasterville and had maybe 50 copies of that poem made. And I think I just put an angel pin on it. I called it An Angel for the Overwhelmed. And I called my best friend Terry, and she said, Oprah said she has a whole team of angels on her side. I went, ding, ding, ding. I'm going to call it A Team of Angels for the Overwhelmed. So I wrote that poem, and I went up to the Monastery of the Poor Clares in Langhorne. And every day I would go there praying for my situation, but I would write a new poem, A Team of Angels for the Healing Grace of God. By the end, I had 300 poems, but for every possible situation. But there was a nun in there, and I started talking to this nun, and I said, Sister, I want to make more of these pins and cards because I think there's a lot of overwhelmed people here in Bucks County. She said, oh, yes, dear, there are. She said, go to the religious store down the street and find out who makes these little cheap metal. She didn't say cheap metal, but not karat gold, 14 karat gold. And I went into the store, and there was a sales rep there from Cathedral Art Metal in Rhode Island. And he said, we make these up in Rhode Island. So I went to Rhode Island, and I wanted to make 100 or 1,000. And they said I needed to do a run of 10,000. And I did. And I put 10,000 pins, probably at $1.25 each on a Discover card. And that's what launched the Team of Angels movement. And I went on to make 125,000 Team of Angel pins.
And I have to tell you, Trisha, I've told you this off the air, it's one of the sweetest things that I think you've ever done. You've done lots of sweet things, but you were very gracious. You gave me a whole bunch of them, I know, and my wife. And one of the greatest gifts we would give to people, you give these Team of Angels, with this little poem you wrote, and a little beautiful little card, and you give it to people, and it was so impactful for them. They'd lose somebody, or they'd be sick, or a pet would die. Right, you had some, I think, for pets as well. And we just love them to the extent that we just come out, like crazy. Anybody who needed a Team of Angels. And he told me off the air that we weren't the only people who had a pretty good reaction to that. You got some other letters from people?
Well, when I went up to Rhode Island and I was going to I was staying at the Days Inn with the kids, 4 kids and a dog. And I was having a meeting with Art Metal. There was a man sitting next to me in the free breakfast or whatever it was. And his name was Charles Smith. And I know it said CNN on there, but on his card. But I've never been able to find him because I want to tell him thank you for what he launched. I went over and I just said something stupid like, are you a businessman? He looked at me like, what? And I said, I'm going for this meeting and I have this poem and they're going to make an angel pin, but they told me that I should put something on side 2 because it's the same price. And he said, well, you need a shtick. And I said, what's a shtick? He said, I said, what's that? He said, put on the back something like, you can't buy these angels. We'll give them to you if you'll pass them out to other people. So on the back, I said, the Team of Angels message, please keep this angel pin until you meet someone who needs it more than you do and kindly pass it along. If you'd like to write a note and tell us where you were when someone gave you this pin. 35,000 people sent me letters. They came from a death row inmate that wasn't able to get the pin, but he had the card. They came from, I just can't tell you all the people and where these pins spread by giving them out locally, and those local people pass them on to other people.
What did you do with the 35,000 letters?
I kept them for a lot of years, and I had them in boxes labeled VGL for very good letter, VVGL for very, very good letter, GL. And I thought if Oprah ever called, I'd be able to go to the right box and get the most poignant letters. And Oprah did call once or twice, not Oprah herself, her producer.
Right.
I never got on the show, but they responded to 2 pitch letters about, and I didn't know what a pitch letter was, but it was probably just a letter saying, this is what I'm doing, I'm passing them out. Actually, I think I got one of the ideas, one of the letters got to the Oprah producer, and she called back and she said, are these spreading all over your town? And I thought, well, I guess I better get them all over the town. So I took them to channels 3, 6, 10, 17, and 29. And I said, from February 2nd to February 9th of 1999, anybody that was overwhelmed could come to my front porch. And I had those 10,000 pins sitting there, the 10,000 initial order. And it was like Halloween. It was like people streaming by. So many people were coming that I opened the doors and I had coffee and Entenmann's, and people were sitting in the sunroom, the living room, the dining room, and everybody was sharing what they were going through. And that went on from February 2nd to February 9th. And I had 5,000 pins left. And a lady said, do you have anything for the military? I have a son serving in Kosovo. And I said, well, wait, come back tomorrow. So I wrote a new poem, A Team of Angels Protect All Military Families. And I went over to Office Max, had 100 copies made or whatever, changed the pin from one card to another. And I called McGuire Air Force Base and met with the chaplain. And I said, would you be interested in these pins? Is anybody overwhelmed here? And he said, Patricia, do you know what it's like to be called in the middle of the night for an unknown cause for an unknown period of time? He said, all of our guys, he said, guys are overwhelmed. And so before I had a chance to bring him the 5,000 pins with the new card, the Stars and Stripes military newspaper, which I didn't know what that was, there was a reporter, Amy Siebold, and she wrote a story that was in the Sunday Stars and Stripes of May 30th, 1999. And instead of taking 5,000 up to McGuire Air Force Base, I mailed them out in boxes of 250 to our service people in Macedonia, Bosnia, Albania, and that's how it caught on with the military. And then after that, the military PX started ordering them, but I didn't have a plan to do that, and I didn't price it right, and it was a nightmare to do it, but it got out there.
And I'm telling you, even just hearing the story again, I've heard it before, it just, I'm just moved by it every time I hear it. But also, Trisha, by the reaction that when we'd give these pins out to people, they just love them. It's just a sweet little thing, a team of angels, great concept. But again, with you, Trisha, I can't blink, because by the time I blink, you're into the next project. And one I'll ask you about too, and another of my favorites, and then you'll talk about how that evolved as well. But I guess I bumped into you a couple of years after that, or you'll tell me when you were all of a sudden in the flower business. That all of a sudden now, you're now collecting and delivering flowers all over the Philadelphia area. What was that about?
It was May of 2013, and I went to live with my mother. She had broken her hip and her wrist and that kind of stuff. And I thought I'd go there for a month or two. And while I was there, I was trying to think of things to do with my mother rather than visiting Rosie at the nursing home and things like that. And my daughter suggested that I contact a grocery store and ask what they do with their day-old flowers. And I contacted Trader Joe's, and I went down to the 21st to Market or whatever. And I asked if my mother and I could pick up the flowers, and they said, yes, come the next day. But then after day 2, they said, oh, where's your nonprofit certification?
Right.
We only give to nonprofits. So I went back to my church, which was called Circle of Miracles, and I asked the minister, and she said, well, why don't you give a little talk on Sunday about what you want to do and see what people think? And it's a small church. And her husband was 91. And the church said, yeah, you can be an outreach of the church. So my mother was 88, Bob was 91, and myself. We started going to Trader Joe's every morning, stop and have our coffee in Mount Airy, go down and pick up the flowers. And then my mother would say, your guy, where do you want these flowers to go today? And she'd say, we should go to an AIDS hospice on Girard Avenue, or we should go to a shelter. And so my mother and Bob and I, for a few years, it was every day in May 2013, 2014, we passed out the flowers. And I did that. I've done that until recently. And I stopped counting at 65,000 bouquets. So
Now talk about also, Trisha, just the reaction. So you pick up these flowers, and I want other people, if they're listening or watching now, just think about some of these ideas that Trisha is mentioning, and you could be doing this yourself. In other words, there's no reason, and you've always encouraged me to tell people that you couldn't start it in Asheville. You couldn't start it, you name the city, contact the store, because I didn't realize that. So stores get rid of their flowers after a certain point in time? What did they do with them? What do they ordinarily do them if they're
Well,
not sold?
they probably toss them unless there's somebody that picks them up. But I was picking up between 50 and 100 on average every day. And I had 5 different stores I was going to. And then there was a 6th store that I picked up once or twice a week, but they didn't want their name public. So I would pick up stores, and they might be a little bit wilted, but they still looked absolutely beautiful. And then we would wander up and down the streets of Philadelphia. We'd go around Norristown. We'd go to laundromats. We would just go wherever people could be uplifted by receiving a beautiful bouquet of flowers.
And what was the reaction you got?
Oh, I would give a smile. I would get a smile. I'd give a hug. I'd get a hug. It was wonderful. And my volunteer now, she's 97. So my mother and Bob passed away. But my neighbor is Ella. And I guess about 5 years ago, I started taking Ella out with me. I'm 5'11", she's 4'8". We're like mutton deaf. She can't see very well now, and she can't hear, but she loves to go along. It gives her a purpose. So the reaction is just people are in disbelief. Sometimes they say, oh, can I have 10 because I'm going to blah, 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 blah. We would go to bus stations, train stations. The reaction was just amazing. People couldn't believe we were giving them these beautiful bouquets for free.
Now, it was interesting how that kind of evolved, because you're telling me off the air that at some point in time you discovered that even though that was getting a great reaction, you were seeing that people needed more than just flowers. And you want to talk about what you started doing as a result?
Yeah, I guess right when the pandemic started, picking up the flowers, I could still do that, but I really couldn't go into the nursing homes where I was passing out flowers. And I just made up this title, the Love Thy Norristown Neighbor Project. I don't know why I called it that, but I decided that I would approach different food pantries, 4 different food pantries in my area, and ask if I could pick up food once a week. And then I took food up and down the streets of Norristown to the communities that I knew were low income, primarily the Hispanic community, where I knew a lot of the people didn't have their dishwashing jobs and their housekeeping jobs anymore. And so we started passing out the food, and we're talking carloads of food. We're talking going back and getting another carload. And then I started picking up diapers and baby formula, picking up clothes and fans. So the Love Thy Norristown Neighbor Project, I do that 5 days a week now. I just procure things from wherever I get it. And then I just drive up and down the streets, and I have 23 families that once a week I make a visit to their home, and they just kind of come out to the pavement or come out to my car, and I open the side doors and the back door, and people take whatever they want, whether it's milk, it's meat, it's bread.
What I like about this, Trisha, and I think probably other people as well, is you kind of just did it and not worried about all the red tape and putting through the people through the paces. Because, again, a lot of other programs to qualify for or to even do, it takes you, like you were saying, nonprofit status. It could have taken a year or 2 years to just get it off the ground. I just love your attitude. You said, well, hey, that's okay, but I don't have to go through that. And you just did it, which is to your credit.
Two times over the years with the Team of Angel Pins and with the Flower Project, I did go through the rigmarole of going through becoming a nonprofit.
Right.
And I did nothing with it after I paid the fees and wrote did everything.
Right.
It just didn't work for me. Like, I didn't want to do fundraising. I just wanted to be the Lone Ranger mom doing my way. I just didn't want any accountability. I didn't want any expectation. And you know what, too, I don't really like people to go along with me very much because my little 97-year-old neighbor, Ella, she's fine. And my mother and Bob, who also went with me, Bob was 91, my mother was 88 when I was doing these projects. But sometimes people have an expectation, or I go to a certain neighborhood in West Philadelphia and they go, oh, you're not going into West Philadelphia. Or I start to go down the expressway. You're not going down the expressway, are you? Are you just going to take these flowers into a McDonald's in Hunting Park? And I felt like a lot of people wanted to tell me how to do it, maybe by their actions, but I just want to be the Lone Ranger mom and pick up the stuff and take it where I think it's needed, whether it's flowers, whether it's food, whether it's lamps, whether it's tablecloths. That's the way I operate. And it's the only way I know how to be. I can't do the business plan. I've done that kind of stuff and got that notary type seal, but it just doesn't work for me. I have to just do it. I do it my way, like Frank Sinatra would say.
Trisha Gallagher, talk a little bit in closing here about your Sprinkle Kindness campaign. I just love the title of that, Sprinkle Kindness. What's that all about?
Well, I wrote a book, 150 Ways to Sprinkle Kindness in Your Community. And I just gathered all kinds of ideas from everybody that I knew about ways that people could pick up flowers, pick up food, just do nice things for other people. So I just have to tell people, you just have to do it your way. If you want to give out food, find a way to give out food. If you want to give out flowers, do it that way. I mean, I pick up people drop things on my porch. Sometimes I don't want those things that they bring. I mean, and I have to tell people, I can't have people like dropping things off where I live, but I just want to tell people to just, if it's food, if it's flowers, if it's clothes, there's somebody out there that needs what you have to give. And I don't ever have a business plan. I'm embarrassed to say that because I have an MBA and at least I should have a business plan, but I really don't. I almost just say, God, what do you want me to do today? And then I might go pick up food. I might go pick up flowers. I might go pick up clothes. So I guess I'm just kind of like the Lone Ranger mom, but I always.
To the contrary, I just love it because I used to tell students the same thing too, or score clients, they'd spend months and months developing a business plan, it would never get done. And you just say, hey, I'm going to do it. It's even better. Put you on the spot. Give me a couple of things we can share with viewers if they're watching on Facebook, listeners if they're listening on the radio, that they can do to spread kindness or sprinkle kindness. If they're listening to the show, give me a couple of things that you would recommend.
I guess I would maybe just put out the word on Facebook, like I put out the word and I say, I need children's clothes, blah, 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 blah. And then I just think of what people might need, or somebody might contact me and say, I need food. So then if I were people in the audience, I would go to food pantries and say, I'd like to distribute food. If you want to collect blankets and clothes or housewares, just put it out on Facebook and you'll find people in your community that need these things. I mean, I literally drive down the streets of Norristown, open the door of my car, and just people are sitting out there and I just say, come and take what you need. And I do that. I do that almost every day because people are saying, do you need these lamps? Do you need these dishes? Do you need these towels? And I never say, no, I don't need them as long as they're clean. And then I just take whatever people give me. And like the Lone Ranger mom, I just drive around and pass things out.
Trisha Gallagher, if folks want to get in touch with you to either find out about some of these projects you've talked about or about your books, best bet to find out more about you is what?
I would just say to go to www.happyflowerday.org, www.happyflowerday.org, and that will give you lots of ideas of things that you can do for your community as well.
Okay, and I'll be able to track you down and reach you through there as well?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Trish, I'd like to thank you again for being my guest on the second half hour of the Blaine's World Show. Been too long, and I'd say next time I'm in the Philadelphia area, who knows when that'll be, but we hopefully will bump into each other. I'd like to thank my guest the first half hour, Simka Weinstein, and also would like to thank folks for listening to the Blaine's World Show, heard here on Wednesdays at WPVM at at 9 o'clock. I'd also like to thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti. I look forward to having you join me next Wednesday at 9 a.m. here on WPVM 103.7 in Asheville, North Carolina. You can also listen online at WPVMFM.org. See you next week. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.